A new report from Dropsite News has revealed that in 2015, Larry Ellison poured millions of dollars into Marco Rubio's presidential bid, but only after he made sure that Rubio supported Israel enough. And we'll give you more of those details in that remarkable scoop in a moment. But Cenk, what do you think about this? Is this the world's second richest man vetting somebody for president, not for qualification or policy, but loyalty to another country?
By the way, Larry Ellison's pretending to be an American, but he's vetting people on behalf of Israel. So that is a giant problem. And now he's the guy who is financing the purchase of Paramount, CBS, potentially CNN, TikTok. So he'll be vetting all of you. And if you dare disagree with Israel, there's gonna be consequences. So how they legally bribe politicians like Rubio is super interesting. It's in this story. Another thing that's incredibly interesting is I was on a debate with an Israeli, someone supporting Israel earlier this week, and I said Tony Blair is closer to Benjamin Netanyahu than Mrs. Netanyahu is. And he was outraged. How could I possibly say that? Wait till you see how much money Larry Ellison has funneled over to Tony Blair to be Israel's dog. So Jordan, tell him the story.
So Larry Ellison, like I said, he is currently the second richest man in the world, and he's the co-founder of Oracle. And thanks to a deal negotiated by President Donald Trump, Oracle now owns a substantial portion of TikTok. Oracle will also be in charge of the app's algorithm and security operations. Both US senators and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have stated that the Israel government's goal is to crack down on TikTok, specifically pro-Palestinian content on TikTok. And that's where Oracle and Ellison come in. Ellison has previously hosted Netanyahu at his private island. It's also been reported that Ellison offered Netanyahu a seat on the board of Oracle. Furthermore, Ellison said at a 2014 fundraiser attended by other pro-Israel billionaires, there is no greater honor than supporting the Israeli military. In 2017, Ellison gave Friends of the IDF a gift of 16.6 million in 2017 in what was the largest ever donation to the organization. Now, back in 2015, Ellison was emailing back and forth with a man named Ron Prosor. At the time, Prosor was serving as the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. On April 26th, 2015, Prosor and Ellison got dinner together. The two had corresponded about Rubio's presidential bid. The next day, Ellison told Prosor, "P.S. I'll tell you how dinner goes with Senator Rubio." On April 30th, Prosor asked Ellison, "How was the conversation with Mario Rubio? Did he pass your scrutiny? Did you have a chance to talk about Israel? Would love to chat." Now, per the Dropsite report, a few hours later, Ellison responded in the affirmative. "Hi, Ron, great meeting with Marco Rubio. I set him up to meet with Tony Blair," adding, "Marco will be a great friend for Israel." Now, before we get to Tony Blair, it's worth noting that only 1 month after his emails with Prosor, Ellison threw a big fundraiser for Rubio. And by the time Rubio bowed out of the primary, Ellison had dumped $5 million into a pro-Rubio super PAC. So what does Tony Blair have to do with any of this? Well, he is the former prime minister of the United Kingdom. In 2016, Blair founded the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Here's how the Tony Blair Institute, or TBI, describes its services. "We help governments and leaders get things done. We do it by advising on strategy, policy, and delivery, unlocking the power of technology across all three." And then here is where Larry Ellison comes in. Ellison has given or pledged more than 350 million to the Tony Blair Institute, which Blair has used to advance Ellison's vision of a marriage between government, corporate power, and tech surveillance. Last year, Ellison laid out the following vision of a surveillance state during an investor call. "We're going to have supervision Every police officer is going to be supervised at all times, and if there's a problem, AI will report that problem and report it to the appropriate person. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we are constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. Oracle and the Tony Blair Institute, or TBI, were described as inseparable by a former TBI employee. The two organizations reportedly hold joint retreats so often that the events are now commonplace. Ex-TBI employees stated that they acted as a sales vehicle for Oracle's services. Blair's advisors are on the boards of both Oracle and TBI. And we recently learned about Oracle and TBI's next project, Gaza. This is a direct excerpt from Trump and Netanyahu's most recent peace proposal. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee. This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the quote, Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump, with other members and heads of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Per Drop Site News, Rubio was also closely involved in the rollout of Trump's plan for Gaza's future, which hands the enclave to Blair. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, tasked the Blair Institute in the spring with coming up with a post-war plan for Gaza, which was recently completed. Cenk, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so let's break this down one by one. So first, I had to look up Larry Ellison's citizenship. Like, which country is he a citizen of? Because he said in that quote, that the first quote that Jordan read to you, there is no greater honor than supporting the Israeli military.
Right.
How about supporting the US military? That's not a greater honor? No. So then, as you see in the emails, the Israeli ambassador asks him, did you scrutinize the US senator running for president on behalf of Israel? And Ellison's like, yes, I did. He passed the test. He will serve Israel loyally. So now that's obviously the conclusion, because he said he passed it. He's a friend of Israel. And then he gave him $5 million, which, by the way, also shows you how this game is played. There's the campaign contributions that the Israeli lobby gives to people like Senator Marco Rubio and now our Secretary of State. And of course, he's gotten over $1 million there. In fact, he's gotten $1,013,563 from the Israeli lobby. But every moron in mainstream media will tell you, no, that $1 million never affected Marco Rubio. He just happened to love Israel. The $1 million in his pocket is a total coincidence. And now we find out, as I've been telling you all along, that's not the only money they give. Even though that's a ton of money, no, they give so much more behind it. That is why our politicians act like such servile, like, honestly, the servants of Israel. And so here you're seeing it in the internal emails. He will serve Israel. So your Secretary of State, America, he doesn't serve you. Why? Larry Ellison gave him another $5 million in a super PAC. And by the way, that doesn't even include the dark money. So it appears to be an infinite amount of money that supporters of Israel give to our politicians, not to serve this country, but to serve that country. So then he goes on and he gives $350 million to Tony Blair. That's in that debate that I mentioned earlier, there was a Palestinian as well. When Tony Blair was mentioned as the person who will oversee Gaza, he was repulsed. Why? Because everyone in the Middle East, and certainly the Palestinians, already know Tony Blair's a dog of Israel. He's the one of the guys who started the Iraq war for the neocons. You know who one of the neocons was? Benjamin Netanyahu, okay? And so Tony Blair's like, oh, we gotta go to war with Iraq. Now why? They pretended they had weapons of mass destruction. Where do we get the intelligence on so-called weapons of mass destruction? You're gonna be shocked to find out our special ally, Israel, gave us that fake intelligence. You're not going to be surprised to find out, if you're following the news at all, their leaders, Ariel Sharon and Benjamin Netanyahu at the time, was saying that Iraq was the #1 enemy of Israel. And if you don't know this, Saddam Hussein used to attack and oftentimes kill Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda attacked us, Saddam would attack Al-Qaeda. Saddam's a terrible guy for other reasons. But we attacked someone who shared our enemy. He would attack Al-Qaeda as well. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter what American interests were, because Larry Ellison and other people that serve Israel said, no, Tony Blair, attack Iraq. America, George Bush, Dick Cheney, attack Iraq. And they happily did it. And look at that. What an incredible coincidence. Halliburton got no bid contract, so Dick Cheney was enormously rich. He got a $34 million exit package from Halliburton before he delivered those contracts for them. Tony Blair gets $350 million. And then if you point out any of these facts, they go, shh, you're not allowed to say that. We will censor you. And Larry Ellison now has bought TikTok and CBS and maybe buying CNN. Why? Because he's gonna censor anyone who dares to criticize his beloved Israel. Hey, if you like Israel so much, why don't you get the hell out of our country and go work and live in Israel? At least be a little bit honest about where your allegiance lies. And no, don't give me goddamn nonsense about tropes. This isn't a trope. There are tons of wonderful Jewish Americans who are sickened by this genocide, who are leaders of the peace movement. Israel tries to hide behind Jewish Americans. Oh, don't attack us. That means you're attacking good Jewish Americans. No, we're not. We're doing it based on your actions. And Larry Ellison has supported Israel over America 1,000 times over. And so now Tony Blair is supposed to be a neutral arbiter between the Palestinians and the Israelis. He gets paid by Israeli supporters. His entire thing, institute, is based on the $350 million from Larry Ellison, who worships and funds the Israeli military. And finally, if you notice there, I mean, if all of that wasn't haunting enough, Ellison bragging about, don't worry, we now have the software to track everyone. So they started experimenting, and I've told you this all throughout, started experimenting in Gaza. How do we track everyone so we have complete control? So that's why this sentence that Jordan read you earlier is even more haunting. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we are constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And he's not reporting to see if you've committed a crime or done something wrong. He's recording and coming after you if he thinks you've done something against his beloved Israel. And if you dare defy them, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble. And these guys are gonna spend a ton of money to target you and track you and oppose you and fight you. And if you kiss Israel's ass, well, then there's infinite money. Nina.
Rapacious greed and corruption. And this reminds me of George Orwell's book, 1984. This would be a good time if people have not read that book, or a good time to reread that book. But my God, yeah, I mean, Jink, you didn't wore me out with your soliloquy. You didn't said it all.
Yeah,
this is sick.
So look, Drop Site News, terrific reporting here. I want to be clear. They think that this came from a leak that the Iranians did. So so I want you to know that. I want you to know the context of it. And so but when the Russians did the leaks, they were reported all over American media about Hillary Clinton and her team. So unfortunately, we have tons of different countries meddling in our politics: Russia, China, Israel, and Iran as well. But the emails have been verified to the best of their abilities at Drop Site News, and they went and looked at the pictures of the Israeli ambassador. They looked at the entire profile to confirm that these emails are real. And so, and by the way, if they want, they can go and try to prove that they're not real, okay? But they won't do that because they think it doesn't matter. Drop Site News is gonna report it, Young Turks is gonna report it, but here's who's definitely not gonna report it: CBS. And here's where you're not going to be able to hear it soon: TikTok, because Ellison is buying those things, either bought them or is about to buy them. And soon it might be CNN as well. But it doesn't really matter because almost all of mainstream media is already in their pocket. CNN has every story about Israel routed through their Israel bureau. Why? Can you imagine in any other country? Oh, we're reporting on something about Saudi Arabia. First we have to ask the Saudis, may we please report about your country? This is preposterous. If you don't love America, why are you here? Oh, I get it. To take our money, Because if you think Ellison's money is a lot for Israel, remember, they robbed the American taxpayer every year, $3.8 billion. In the middle of the genocide, Joe Biden also funded #1 donor of his entire career, AIPAC. It's not anti-Semitic to say that, that's a fact. That's a fact. They're buying our politicians, lock, stock, and barrel. So Biden, what did he do? Oh, I send you a strongly worded letter. Oh, here's an $18 billion check. American taxpayers, shut up, pay Israel, right? And then Trump comes in, 6 billion, 7 billion. Oh, you're doing a genocide. Oh, we'd love to rob American taxpayers and send it over so you can murder 20,000 Palestinian children because Ellison and other Israeli supporters have commanded our politicians. They have commanded them and they have legally bribed them until they serve another country. It's sickening.